FOXSOUL's Black Report. This is a space where we bring you Black America's headline news, views, and opinions. I'm Romeo.
Hey there, I'm Brooke.
I'm Demi. And on today's report, 3 Tacoma, Washington police officers were charged in the death of a black man. Black Lives Matter co-founder Patrisse Cullors has stepped down. Bill Cosby's denied parole, and Homeland Security says commemorations of the Tulsa Race Massacre could be a target for white supremacists.
Are you planning on traveling for the holiday? We're going to show you what to expect. Plus, one state is offering big money in hopes of getting you vaccinated. Also, will fans be allowed at the Olympics? We're going to break down the latest.
Yes, we will. We have all of that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth, so let's talk about it.
3 Tacoma, Washington police officers have been charged in the death of Manuel Ellis. NBC News reports Ellis was a 33-year-old black man who died last year after he was handcuffed and restrained. The state AG says officers Christopher Burbank and Matthew Collins have been charged with second-degree murder. And Officer Timothy Ranking is facing a first-degree manslaughter charge. King 5 reports they've all been booked into Pierce County Jail. A Tacoma PD spokesperson says the department will conduct its own investigation before deciding whether disciplinary actions will be taken. Police stopped Ellis in March while he was walking home. Court documents say officers were unprovoked when they slammed Ellis to the ground, punched him, and hogtied him as he repeatedly said, "I can't breathe." I want to give you a little more information into what allegedly happened that day. So according to King 5, they're reporting Ellis was walking home from a 7-Eleven after purchasing some snacks when witnesses say he stopped to speak with the first 2 officers, Burbank and Collins, because they were stopped at a red light in their patrol car. And this is according to court documents. Witnesses say Ellis turned to walk away, but the officers got out of their car and knocked Ellis to his knees. All witnesses told investigators they didn't see Ellis strike the officers at all. This is, again, according to these court documents. Other officers who then responded to the scene actually told investigators that the first 2 officers reported Ellis was going after a car, and that's a quote, in the intersection, and then attacked the patrol car, punching the windows. Again, remember, witnesses say they never saw Ellis strike the officers and also saw him walking away from the car when the officers got out going towards him. Video footage taken by witnesses does show the officers repeatedly hitting Ellis. And according to these documents, Collins put Ellis into a neck restraint, which prosecutors say the courts have determined could constitute deadly force. The other officer, Burbank, then fired his taser into Ellis's chest while Collins continued to keep Ellis in that chokehold restraint.
Doing this whole thing right here, you just said, right? I didn't notice anything about him having a weapon, about him fighting back, but yet this just shows us how the system is broken. And the investigation included the interviewing witnesses that the police had not interviewed. So I'm glad you brought that part up. And we're knowing this is the first time Washington AG office has criminally charged police officers for unlawful use of deadly force. This has been an ongoing problem. Watching this video is not easy to watch at all when I had to watch back before today's show, and it's very disturbing, just like the others. Again, the system is broken. We have to figure out how to fix it.
Yeah, Romeo, I definitely think that we've gotten to a point where we're normalizing Black death, and it is definitely sad. But what I wanted to add, I like that you added in there that this is the first time that they've criminally charged police officers. And, you know, Attorney General Ferguson, he did a lot of work behind the scenes. And some of this is work that would typically be done during an investigation. But I do think that watching Derek Chauvin's murder trial play out the way that it did, all the extra witnesses and the use of force experts that came in, I think that it's starting to inspire some of these attorney generals and prosecutors to make sure that they go the extra mile. So Attorney General Ferguson, he did a lot of work, like you were saying, Brooke, those additional investigations. I mean, from, you know, piecing together audio, getting visual evidence. They also hired an expert on police use of force. They did, on top of the investigation, another investigation on top of that. They assembled a team of multidisciplinary disciplinary, a multidisciplinary team, to assist in reviewing the investigation. I mean, so many things were done behind the scenes. And so I really think that Derek Chauvin's murder trial inspired a lot of these AGs and, like I said, prosecutors to go that extra mile to get all of the facts.
Yeah, it's time that they do that. All right, moving on. Black Lives Matter co-founder Patrisse Cullors is stepping down from her role as executive director of the activist group Central Foundation amid questions about her finances. Cullors, 37 years old, told the Associated Press on Thursday that she was leaving the position to focus on other projects, including the release of her second book and a television deal with Warner Brothers. She held a top post at Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation for more than 5 years. The activist says she had created the necessary bones and foundation at the organization and felt the time is right to leave. She asserted that her exit was planned for more than a year and was unrelated to scrutiny regarding her personal finances. Now, obviously, some people feel different about this. They're questioning the time that she's leaving BLM, which today is her last day. People are wondering how she got this lifestyle based on how she and what she was doing before she became a part of this whole movement. She has a home in Southern California, a ranch in Georgia, purchased property in the Bahamas. So people are saying, look, they took in $90 million by 2020. What's really happening with that money? People definitely want to know.
I mean, absolutely, Romeo. Glad you touched on that. We are just like in sync. You're stealing all of my, everything I want to say.
Here.
I love it. We are here. I love it. But just to add on to what you were saying, all of the homes that she purchased, she made 4 big purchases that totaled $3.2 million, and that was just in the U.S. They were saying that she also was looking at houses in the Bahamas and other locations outside the country. The reality of it is that it really doesn't matter what the actual reason why she's leaving is. It doesn't look good amid the controversy that's going on with Black Lives Matter, like we talked about on the show. But so someone on Twitter added in an excerpt of what she said. She says that those someone else said this. Sorry, let me rewind. She said this. Those were right-wing attacks that tried to discredit my character, and I don't operate off of what the right thinks about me. Someone else added on top of that, but Cullors said her departure has been in the works and is not tied to those attacks. Sorry, I got a little confused there. So basically what I was trying to say here is that she's saying this has nothing to do with it, but someone else is saying that she was already planning on leaving, but I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like 1 + 2 = 3. A, B, and C. What do you guys think? Brooke, do you have any?
I mean, definitely, like, the timing is at the very least coincidental.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. Obviously, a couple things going on here. On one hand, lots of questions. You have the parents of some of these people who have been victims, parents who have lost their children in situations that Black Lives Matter activists are, using these names to fight for. And they're saying, hey, we're destitute. We don't have any money. We don't have any of this. We haven't benefited from this. I mean, you're using my kid's name. And so one can understand that. And also, I don't believe that Black women activists have to be broke. Do you know what I mean? And so I think that, like, I can understand there's a lot going on here. Yeah. So it's probably more comfortable for everybody involved for her to say, I've done what I wanted to do. And honestly, for the rest of her life, she can be proud of what she started.
That's true.
That's very true. That's a good point. Yeah,
so
for sure.
It's peaceful for her and everyone involved.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So Amy Cooper, a white New York woman who called police on a black bird watcher in Central Park last Memorial Day, is suing the company that swiftly fired her over the controversial incident. Amy Cooper filed a federal lawsuit this week against the Franklin Templeton, saying the company never investigated the incident that led to her firing. You'll recall this is all stemming from the confrontation between her and Christian Cooper. Her lawsuit claims that her employer discriminated against her because of her race and gender. She's seeking back pay and bonus, loss of unvested funds and other benefits, front pay or reinstatements, emotional distress, damages, attorney's fees and costs and interest, as well as punitive damages in an amount to be determined at trial. Franklin Templeton says that the company did the right thing in firing Cooper. They added, "We believe the circumstances of the situation speak for themselves and that the company responded appropriately." The company told NPR in an emailed statement. They also added, we will defend against these baseless claims." So I know, I'm probably thinking what a lot of people were thinking, because, I even said it. I remember that he might have taken it too easy. He kind of pulled off the gas a little bit. And a lot of us were like, no, she needs to get every bit of smoke that she's getting. For her, how do you expect for your employer to look at, like, this made national headlines? This video was on national news for many weeks. How do you expect to look at your headline, look at your employer and say, how would you guys fire me for a story, for lying about attacking a person of color? Like, sis, like, give it a break. And then to say because of the color of your skin, I have no words for her at this point.
I think people gave Christian Cooper,
yes,
right, a hard time. And I don't think that was fair, because I don't think that we can judge it. It also happened, obviously this was a far different incident, when Botham Jean, the black man who was killed by an officer in Dallas, after Amber Geiger, the officer, was found guilty and sent to prison, Botham Jean's brother hugged her in court. Again, people love to beat down on victims of these situations about how they choose to move forward. And I don't think that's fair. I think that that's their prerogative. And I think that we should support people after they're the ones who dealt with that. I also think that this is deranged, this lawsuit, and because it's not simply retaliation, it's not something like that. I think that an employer has a responsibility to protect everybody in the workplace. And before there's any sort of intense counseling done, any sort of, hey, I've fixed my state of mind, I don't do this anymore, we're dealing with a person who treats black people like the boogeyman simply because she doesn't get her way. We're dealing with a person who will put a black person's life in danger, lie on them, lie to the police simply because she doesn't get her way. That person, I think that it's understandable that a manager would think, hey, she's a danger to all my black employees. She's a danger at this point in her life. She is a danger to everybody here because of her state of mind, because of how she behaves. And so I think that's important. People don't think about the larger ramifications of someone who behaves like this, someone who is capable of behaving like this. And currently, she seems to be saying she's still the same.
Yeah, she was out of line, out of pocket. And would you want her working for your company?
No.
That's the question. Probably not. And I'll say this real quick before we move on. Like, I'm like Mr. Cooper, too. I'm the kind of be like, you know what, someone made a mistake. They made themselves look very foolish. I'm going to move on my life. I'm not going to hold on to this. I'm not going to put too much on it, right? If she would have just moved on, been apologetic about it, fine. But now she wants to create this lawsuit. She continues to play herself. Bottom of the line. It is what it is. All right, Bill Cosby has reportedly been denied parole after refusing to take sex offender classes. According to Reuters, the Pennsylvania Parole Board rejected the request for parole after Cosby declined to participate in a therapy program for sexually violent predators. Andrew White, a spokesperson for the 83-year-old, said, "We knew he was going to be rejected. He called me and told me that if he didn't take the course, he would be denied. He has maintained his innocence from the beginning." Laura Treaster, a spokesperson for the state parole board, said the board would not reconsider Cosby for parole unless the sexual violent predator therapy is completed. In 2018, a jury convicted Cosby of 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault for drugging and sexually assaulting Andrea Constant at his Philadelphia home in 2004. And, you know, it's always a hard topic, a hard story to discuss. People feel this way when we talk about Michael Jackson sometimes. They feel this way about R. Kelly. But we do know when the verdict came through, over 50% of the people agreed that the verdict was correct. It was the right thing to do. But in the black community, 32% thought he was innocent. But moving forward, at the end of the day, you know, people are going to feel the way they feel. And some people just do not like talking about this or anything that has something to do with Bill Cosby.
Well, I feel like, you know, Bill Cosby, you were found guilty. You're in jail serving time because you were found guilty. You know, I'm just curious why his lawyers wouldn't encourage him to just take the class. It's not, you know, if you not taking the class actually looks worse than you going and owning up to your mistake, because then it's also kind of a slap in the face. Because one is it saying that you don't believe like what you did was rape, and then it's also a slap in the face to the victims.
Also, guys, we're talking about like people who believe he's innocent or guilty. The biggest piece of evidence you'll remember is what came out of his own mouth, right? The biggest piece of evidence in this case is what he said and what he willingly admitted to in a deposition prior to this, and they were able to bring that back up in this court case. The biggest piece of guilt was him saying, I did this to this woman. So what are we arguing? You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean? How are you saying he's not guilty if he said he was?
Right.
Like, do you know what I mean? He's essentially saying, I did this, but I don't think it was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just about the community.
The law is simply there.
And trust me, it's simply there, but you do have people that feel like, from the O.J. Simpson to Rodney King, like they feel a certain way just because I'm supporting mine. And I'm not saying that's right.
But can we also be fair? There is also a culture of not supporting women. There is a huge, dangerous culture, a harmful culture of also not supporting women when they come forward. And we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that that's a big part of this too. Yeah. That's a huge part of this too, because there are 60 accusers. This man is likely going to spend a full 10 years in prison because he doesn't want to simply go to counseling. Exactly. He doesn't want to simply go to treatment. And he is likely, at his age, going to spend 10 years in prison for this one conviction. There are 60 different accusers. Yeah. And I mean, part of that has to do with people there's a culture of not believing women. And in this instance, there's a culture of not believing women so much that you don't want to believe the man who admitted to it.
We can trust. We can go back and forth about. I get it, but we don't have the time.
We don't have time. Yeah, it'd be the whole show. All right. The Department of Homeland Security says the Tulsa Race Massacre commemoration events could be a target for hate crimes. CNN is reporting the department issued a bulletin with the warning of a potential for racial violence, although there is no specific threat. Now, back to the CNN report. A source told the outlet, the bulletin reads, these events probably are attractive targets for some racially or ethnically motivated violent extremist white supremacists to commit violence. President Joe Biden will visit Tulsa, Oklahoma Tuesday to mark 100 years since the massacre where hundreds of Tulsans were murdered and their businesses destroyed in the Greenwood district. There are also several other events scheduled next week. We will have more on the commemoration of this historic tragedy coming up a little bit later in the show. I think a lot of people feeling validated that at least the federal government is speaking about the reality that almost seems like common sense and just not gaslighting a community of people. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, hey, there's going to be hate when you talk about what happened to your people. And isn't that sad that the bar is that low?
It really is. Yeah. You're right about that 100%.